Hi guys, Trevor Swenson with Through the Darkness. As you can see, I am with my significantly better half today, and I'm going to be starting a series called 7 Questions with Steph. These 7 questions, which I hold tonight, or today as my brother would like to say, she has no idea what I'm going to ask her. But the main motivation in doing series with my wife is that both of us, her especially, we are passionate about the fact that the family and the spouses are significantly impacted when somebody walks through PTSD or has unresolved trauma. And it would be a good time for us to discuss what exactly those impacts are from the perspective of a spouse. So, are you ready?
I have no idea what he's going to ask me, so we'll see.
Number 1, what is the number one thing that you've learned about trauma and PTSD having walked through this?
The number one thing I've learned about trauma and PTSD. I think the number one thing I've learned is that you will crave getting your significant other back. You'll crave the old person that you knew, and you'll have to come to grips with the fact that you don't get that person back again. But you also learn along the journey, as I have, that the person you end up having next to you is a much more valuable and deep person, and you have to let go of the old person and hold on to the new person that you are about to get, because the new person is extremely deep and lovable, and you can have a fantastic journey together, but you need each other to get there.
I would agree. Well answered. I would go on to say that I'm most likely significantly better now.
That is very fair
I'm
to
just
say.
I'm clearly not. But number 2, what were you not ready for, and were the first things that you noticed that something was seriously amiss?
Nothing prepares you for this. I was not ready for the changes I saw in my spouse along the way. One of the biggest things was a withdrawal. And I was married to my absolute best friend, and we loved spending time together. I enjoyed just being outside when you mowed the lawn, just because we enjoyed each other's company. And when this little bit of a withdrawal started to happen, when communication started diminishing a little bit, when health symptoms started to arise, when things started to look different, where you would say, this isn't my spouse, something's not right, but you don't know what it is. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for any of that.
Well answered. The withdrawal, I think, is a very important thing for those of you listening to understand, that it's very real and it's very powerful, and it's something that the person going through trauma and PTSD literally can't control. And there's so much going on physiologically and psychologically and emotionally that it is a bit of a shutdown. And again, I didn't recognize it, but she recognized it. How does it, trauma, PTSD, how does it affect the spouse? And we're doing multiple episodes, so you don't need to go off on...
I don't need to write a novel.
No.
You want to know how it affects the
We'll
spouse.
ask the question again. How does it, it'll come up again. How does it affect the spouse?
I think it would be fair to say when your spouse has PTSD, you go through everything they go through right along with them. It not only happens to them, but it happens to you. I'm going to borrow a line from a friend. I happen to have a little sit-down meeting with a friend this week, and they validated, you go through this as well, but you don't have a name for what you're going through. There's no name for your experience, even though you are experiencing it all secondhand.
So to put that a little bit into perspective, and again, we haven't talked about these questions because that's the fun of it, is that when I talked about how powerful the diagnosis was for the spouse, there is no diagnosis, even though they are feeling and walking through and going through everything that the person with the diagnosis is going through. And so obviously a deep level of compassion and empathy and understanding really needs to be out there for the spouses of those people that are diagnosed with what now I can say we have been diagnosed with, because it's been just as rough of a journey for my wife, for sure. How does it, PTSD, trauma and stressor-related disorder, how does it affect the family, kids and extended family?
It took me a while to realize this, but while I felt like it just affected the spouse, it does affect the children, and it does impact the family, the extended family. There seems to be a little bit of a disconnect when you are not married to somebody who's in the military, because you don't know what PTSD is necessarily, or that it can happen to your spouse. And you aren't necessarily equipped with that information on what to be looking for or what this is that is happening to them. And so you don't necessarily know how to handle the kids or how to explain things to the kids, because you don't have the appropriate words all of the time. You have to do a lot of studying, and you have to do a lot of self-improvement so that you can be a good mom and you can communicate with the extended family. And there'll be times that they flat out don't understand what's going on, and it's difficult to help bring them into the loop and understand and be that support group you need if you can't communicate that to them. But it very much impacts everybody, and I would dare say it impacts everybody in a different way. I don't think I could speak necessarily to their experiences other than to validate we all go through this together.
I would agree with that, and I would also ask the question, would you say things as more understanding became available to our kids and our family and our extended family, do you think that was helpful, or do you think things went the other way?
It was extremely helpful.
Yes.
I suddenly had a support network that I didn't have or know that I needed.
A huge support network. And you can probably imagine that when you get a diagnosis, you don't put a banner on the back of your car like a flag that says, just so you know, I just got diagnosed with PTSD, so everybody out there is aware. It starts with your spouse, and literally the kids are a complicated discussion. They want to know why, they want to know who, they want to know everything. And then the next layer of family, obviously, they want to know as well. But the important thing that I want you to hear from Steph that she said so poignantly was you instantaneously gain a, like I've referred to, a pride of lions that is all for you, is incredibly supportive, and then they thirst on top of you as well, and then can start to plug the holes or hold up the heavy end of the log, if you will, as they see and as they understand. So
Wouldn't it be fair to say sometimes the kids express it in unexpected ways? Maybe they act out or challenge, or
yes.
maybe they question.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in our 7 questions with Steph part 2. But I just wanted to touch on the fact that family and kids are deeply impacted as well. Question number 5, so we can get through this. What good has come from PTSD?
When the family goes through trauma, this big hole gets punched through your heart. I like to describe it as. And as you peel back these layers of grief and you work on yourself and you become validating partners to each other, there's this healing that begins to take place in your heart. And you realize that underneath all of this grief and hurt is actually love, a deep, deep love that you are capable of for other people. And I would say that what we have to offer other people has a lot more depth to it and a lot more understanding to it than it ever would have had before.
Yes.
That's my favorite part about this difficult journey.
Yes.
Purpose.
Is that you understand pain at a whole new level, and because of the depth of pain I think that you and I have experienced, we also have been fortunate enough to experience the same, if not greater, level of love and compassion as well. It's kind of a weird dynamic, and we can talk about that.
Dynamic.
Number 6, how has it changed me for the good and for the bad? And stay short on the bad.
It has changed you for the better because I have a very deep, compassionate, understanding spouse. You've never taken the battle out on me. We might have gone through periods of sheer survival, but you've never taken it out on me, and I've been able to watch you help other people through their journey and choose the path of love instead of anger and hate. It's a very narrow path, and it inspires me to watch you be that person for other people while under great duress. You treat people the opposite as you are treated.
How about what you don't like about me? And just keep it short, because I know.
I would say what I don't like is PTSD has a secondary goal, if you want to call it that, and it's to destroy relationships, whether it be with spouse, family, friends, you name it. It's a secondary goal to isolate the overcomer, and that is a hurtful part of the journey. But I don't dislike that in you. I recognize it is the trauma itself that I need to keep separate from who you are.
That's very important. And again, she has no idea the questions. You may believe it or not believe it, but she has no idea the questions I was going to ask today. But that is important, to separate the result of the trauma from the actual person's heart, because I have become much more of a loner, much more of a solitude type of a person out of both necessity and just because of the changes that have taken place. So last question for 7 questions with Steph, and we'll wrap it up for this part 1. What is your one piece of advice for spouses? Either one. And it would be the one that is the spouse to somebody with PTSD. So from your perspective.
I would say my number one piece of advice is twofold. First of all, I would suggest for the spouse, for the me, get help, because you need to stay healthy, because you can't take anybody anywhere you have been unwilling to get yourself to. And 2, simultaneously, I would beg you to please get your spouse to a safe environment. Safety.
That's very, very good advice. I'd like to thank my lovely spouse for this first episode of a multi-part series, whether she likes it or not. 7 questions with Steph on being the spouse with somebody who has trauma and stressor-related disorder. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you subscribe to the channel. It'd be great if you hit the notification bell. It would be great if you forwarded this on. We know there are a lot of people out there, and we know that there is very little talk from people who are actually walking through it, and we would like to be those people that keep the dialogue open on this channel. So put God first place. Walk with him through this. He wants to walk with you. We can't wait to see you next time.
Thank you.
It was a piece of cake.